Hello everyone. So our 15th group is over. That means only nitrogen family we have to study. Phosphorus is deleted in this year. So straight away going to the 16th group. That is oxygen family. Okay. Oxygen family, or it is also called as chalcogen. Chalcogen means ore family. Most of these are in the form of ores. You will get in the form of ores. So 16th group, and you know what are the elements in the 16th group? Oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium and polonium. Here polonium is radioactive in nature. Okay, and I think its half-life period is 13 days. Okay, 13.2 days or something. So it is radioactive in nature. So these are the elements in group 16, which are also called as chalcogens. Chalcogens means ore family. Most of the ores are in oxides or sulfides, you know that. So that is why they are called as chalcogens. Okay. Now coming to the occurrence, you know, most of the oxygen, the most abundant element in the earth crust is oxygen. Okay. Then sulfur, you know, most of the ores we come across with this sulfur. For example, if you want to have an ore of sulfur is Cinnabar, HGS, then iron Fe2S, isn't it? Then again zinc blend, ZNS. So most of the sulfide ores are from some sulfur. Or you can have salt like sulfates, sulfite salt, sulfate salt, etc. So sulfates are abundant. Okay. Then comes selenium as well as tellurium. Now, if you know the trend in the 15th group, this is very similar to that of the 16th group. That is, oxygen and sulfur are non-metals, selenium and tellurium are metalloids, and polonium being radioactive. And in fact, tellurium is somewhat metallic in nature. Okay, so oxygen and sulfur are non-metal, selenium is, you can call it as metalloid, and tellurium is metal. Polonium is not. None of in this chapter because it is radioactive. Then, now we will see one by one the trends which you have earlier studied in the 15th group. The same is applicable here. That's why you see, I told you, if you are thorough with the 15th group, the trends, the logic, the reasoning, why it happens, then the same is applicable, but there are some exceptions. That is, in every case there are exceptions. So that's not an issue, but the trends generally will be the same. Okay. Now we will pass on to the first trend, that is the electronic configuration. Okay, electronic configuration. And what is electronic configuration? 16th group. So it is Ns2, Np4. That means 6 electrons in the valence shell. So the fulfilled s orbital and p orbital is 4. So that is electronic configuration. So moving little bit fast because you know all this. We have explained very detailed in 15th group. So electronic configuration. Then comes the atomic and the covalent radii or atomic radius, isn't it? So atomic radius, what happens? Down the group, atomic size increases, isn't it? It's very simple. Atomic size increases or covalent radius increases. Okay. That is atomic radius. That is second one. And third one is what? Third one is the IP. What about IP? What about IP? That is ionization energy or ionization potential. Ionization energy, if you want to write, you can write it as IE. Okay. So that is ionization. And you know, ionization energy means the energy required to remove an electron from a most loosely bounded atom. And in this case, there is one concept. That means, actually, the IP from top to bottom in a periodic table, the IP decreases because the size, atomic size increases. Most of the case you can have the logic of atomic size, but again one more point will be there. So as atomic size increases, the ionization energy decreases. But when you compare the ionization potential with the nitrogen family, that is the 15th group family, there one conflict is there. That means the 15th group family is having a high IP than the 16th group family. Why? That means from nitrogen to bismuth, the IP decreases. But that decrease is greater than, if I want to say delta H1 of this nitrogen family will be greater than delta H of this oxygen family. In fact, we want to say like that in simple words. Why? What is the point? The point is, this nitrogen family has got an electronic configuration of NS2 NP3, isn't it? And what is the speciality of P3? What is the speciality? It is a half-filled orbital in which there is a stability there, or you call it as half-filled stability. Two stabilities are there in the orbitals. One is half-filled stability and other is the full-filled stability, depending on the energy. Last session we discussed. So, due to the half-filled stability of the nitrogen family, it is difficult to get out of an electron from an valence shell rather than the oxygen family. Oxygen family means NS3 NP4. It is not a half-filled stability, you know, right? Like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here it is 1, 2, 3. See? Half-filled. P. Px, Py and Pz. Okay. So that is about the ionization potential or ionization energy, the third trend. Okay, now the fourth trend is the same as the 15th group, that is electronegativity. You know what is electronegativity? Electronegativity is the tendency of an atom to attract a shared pair of electrons towards itself. And as you know, the electronegativity decreases as the atomic size increases. Same, that trend, that is why I told you, the trends are more or less same in each group. Because the atomic size increasing, all these have a common characteristics, isn't it? That's why. So, electronegativity decreases as you go from top to bottom in that chalcogen family. Now, one additional thing here you have to study about is electron gain enthalpy. What is it? Electron gain enthalpy. Thermodynamically, which you write it as delta EGH. It is represented as, see, electron gain enthalpy is represented as delta HEG. That is enthalpy. Delta H is enthalpy and EG means electron gain, which means that this is electron gain enthalpy. And now what is this electron gain enthalpy? Electron gain enthalpy is nothing but the ability of an atom to attract an electron. An ability of an atom means, to be more precise, I can say the ability of a neutral gaseous atom. That's a perfect word. The ability of a neutral gaseous atom. For example, if I take an example of O or sulfur. Electron gain enthalpy is the ability of an isolated gaseous atom or neutral atom to attract an electron. So what will it become? It will become an anion. Is a negative ion. So that tendency or ability is called as electron gain enthalpy. It will be negative. For all these chalcogen family or p block elements, it will be negative. Negative electron gain enthalpy. Positive electron gain enthalpy means what? The reluctant to attract electrons. There is a difference. Negative gain enthalpy means the easiness of attracting an electron to form an anion. And what is positive gain enthalpy, electron gain enthalpy? Positive electron gain enthalpy means the reluctant to attract an electron. And the positive gain enthalpy is seen in which elements, you know? Which group? The zero group. Why? Because it is already in octet. So there is no need for that noble elements to, noble gas elements to, or the 18th elements to attract an electron. So there you will come across with a positive electron gain enthalpy. Here it is negative electron gain enthalpy. You got the difference? So that is electron gain enthalpy. Okay. Now in this case, electron gain enthalpy. In electron gain enthalpy, what happens is the oxygen has got a less electron gain enthalpy than sulfur. The trend, see, in your textbook there is one table, and in that table the physical properties are written. Just go through it and just see the gradation. Is there any exceptions coming in that table? Let's just go through it. Okay, so electron gain enthalpy, the oxygen means electron gain enthalpy means O minus and S is S minus, isn't it? So this is negative electron gain, this is less negative electron gain enthalpy than sulfur. That's the question there. Why? See, what do you mean electron gain enthalpy? To attract an electron to itself, an electron to form an ion. Since oxygen atom, I have told you, the first element in each group is very, very small, the anomalous behavior, isn't it? So, since the oxygen atom is very, very small and it has got a p orbital, isn't it? It has got a p orbital there. What happens? If you want to attract an electron, since the oxygen atom is very, very small and it contains electrons, isn't it? And nucleus, the nucleus is the electrons are attracted towards the nucleus and it is very, very compact in nature, the oxygen. So, it doesn't have a tendency to attract. It is somewhat reluctant to attract the electron when compared to, all are in comparison here, when compared to sulfur being a bigger atom. So, when comparing the electron gain enthalpy, you will see in the table that the oxygen has got a lesser electron gain enthalpy and sulfur is having a greater electron gain enthalpy. But afterwards, from sulfur to selenium, tellurium and polonium, it is decreasing. The trend is there. But there is a small twist in this oxygen and sulfur. Got the logic? Got the reason? That is about electron gain enthalpy. So, these are the general trends in group 16 elements. Is it clear? Now, we will move on to the physical properties. The same as the last time we have discussed about the physical property. When we discuss about the physical property, you will say what? Oxygen and sulfur are gases. Then selenium, we will write once again, oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium and polonium. But selenium is a metalloid and tellurium is a metal. Okay. Then coming to the melting and boiling point, another important point. The melting and boiling point, down the series or down the group, the melting and boiling point increases. When will the melting and boiling point increases? Just the logic behind it, that is, when the intermolecular force of attraction increases, the melting point and boiling point increases. And here there is a van der Waals force, dipole forces are existing in this molecule, thereby the melting point and boiling point increases when you go from top to bottom in this group or from oxygen to tellurium in this group. We are not taking into account of polonium being the radioactive element, right? Now, so that is about the melting point and the boiling point. So, these are the physical properties of this oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium and polonium. Okay. Now, we will go through the chemical properties of these elements. Okay. Now, these are all the physical properties. Just, you know, oxygen is a gas, isn't it? And oxygen is diatomic in molecule. They all comes in the physical properties. Okay. Now, we will see about the chemical properties of oxygen. Chemical properties. In the chemical property, first we will see the oxidation state. The same as what we have said in nitrogen family, the oxidation state. In the same way, we will see what are the common oxidation state of this group 16 element or oxygen to tellurium. Okay, the common oxidation status, you know, oxygen exists as diatomic and sulfur as the what? S8 molecule. One more thing, I'll make it clear. When you talk about the melting point and boiling point, we said it goes on increasing from oxygen to tellurium. But here also, from oxygen to sulfur, listen, from oxygen to sulfur, there is a drastic increase in what? In the increase in melting point. There is a drastic increase in the melting point from oxygen to sulfur. The reason or the logic behind this, what the logic behind is, O is as O2, represent as O2 and S is as S2. So, because of this difference in this molecule, this is a double bond, this is 8 bonds. So, in order to have these 8 bonds broken, high MP is required. So, when compared, there is a drastic increase from oxygen. Oxygen is only O double bond O. So, there is a drastic increase of the melting point from oxygen to sulfur because O exists as O2 and sulfur exists as a S8. Okay. So, this is about the physical property. Now, coming back to the chemical property of this chalcogens or oxygen family. Okay. Now, coming to the first one is oxidation state. Oxidation. See, in every group there are common oxidation states, some common oxidation state. In nitrogen also we have seen the common oxidation state, but when you talk about nitrogen, entire nitrogen itself in nitrogen, then you have studied from +1 to +5. Various oxidation states are there. These are not exceptional cases. But generally, here also the oxidation state is -2, +2 and +4 and +6. So these are the common oxidation state in this oxygen family. You know, oxygen is definitely what? A -2. For example, in any compound you can say it is -2 in oxygen. But the oxygen also exists in +2 only in the compound like OF2. You know, more electron negative than oxygen is fluorine, only the fluorine family. So whenever the fluorine family comes, then it will be what? +2 oxidation state. So other than that, oxygen will always be in a -2 oxidation state. And also the -2 oxidation state, the stability of -2 oxidation state decreases. For example, tellurium, the -2 oxidation state does not exist. That's what. That is -2 oxidation state. That means the increase of this atomic size. So this is the oxidation state about -2, and +2 is, normally oxygen is -2, but for the compound like OF2 it is +2. Okay. Then coming to +4 and +6. +4 and +6 means this sulfur, selenium and tellurium normally has got an oxidation state of +4 and +6, in which the +4 is normally for oxides. Have you got it? The +4 oxidation state is commonly seen in oxides, whereas this +6 oxidation state are seen in halides. That is the difference. Now, +4 oxidation state is mainly seen in the oxides of sulfur, selenium and tellurium, whereas the +6 oxidation state is common among the halides of sulfur, selenium and tellurium. Is it clear? And the same thing applicable here also. The +6 oxidation state is less when coming from oxygen to tellurium. What is the reason? +4 is more stable than +6 when compared from going from oxygen to tellurium. For example, if we say SeCl4 is more stable than SeCl6, the same logic is applicable of the nitrogen family. Why? Why? Because due to the value point, inert pair effect. Due to the inert pair effect, that means this S electron, Ns2Np4, this S electron does not take part in bonding when you come from top to bottom in a oxygen family. The tellurium and the selenium will not take this sulfur, the S orbital to take part. It will remain as inert. So only the P will take part. That is why the 4 is more stable than 6. The same explanation what we are given in the nitrogen family. Okay. So these are some of the things which you come across in the oxidation state. Okay. So that's all. Then comes the reactions with hydrogen, then oxygen, then halides, etc. The same we come across with nitrogen family. Okay. So this is about the oxidation state. Okay. Oxygen definitely only -2. Okay. So then we will pass on to the next topic, that is the reactions with, first we take the reaction with hydrogen. The same thing. First is reaction with hydrogen. Now what is this reaction with hydrogen? What it forms? When you take oxygen, it is H2O. When you take sulfur, it is H2S. Then selenium is H2SE. Then tellurium, that is H2PE. So these are the hydrides. These are the hydrides. Okay. So now we will see what are the main points you can see in this hydrides. The first thing is the stability of the hydrides. The stability of the hydrides. What about the stability of the hydrides? Same as in 15th group. What is it? The stability decreases. And what is the reason behind it? The reason is bond dissociation energy decreases. Exactly the reason. Okay. Now second is, what is it? Reducing character. This is also you studied. Reducing character increases. Why? Because due to the bone dissociation enthalpy decreases. And the third is acidic character increases. Why? Because the bone dissociation enthalpy decreases. So, for 1 point of this bone dissociation enthalpy, the 3 factors you can come across with that. This means the stability decreases, then reducing character increases, and the acidic character increases. For all these 3, we can account that the bone dissociation enthalpy decreases. So, due to the decrease in the bone dissociation enthalpy, all these 3 factors are constant. Okay, so that is the reason. We have explained in the last 15th group, so there is no point in again explaining. Okay, as the size of the, but still, what is bond dissociation enthalpy? The energy required to dissociate the bond. So when you come from top to bottom, the size of the element is increasing. So you can very well break the bond between them. So that is bond dissociation enthalpy decreases. Okay, so these are the trends in hydrides. Understood? Now we will see about the oxides. What are the main thing which you see across in the oxides? So oxides means what? Oxides means anything which comes in combination with oxygen. So you can make oxygen out of this because it won't have any this thing with oxygen. So oxygen means what? SO2, SCO2, then TeO2. Okay, and also SO3. So you can say 2 types of oxides are formed, EO2 and EO3. EO2 and EO3. And one important thing is both the oxides are acidic in nature. Just remember that both the oxides are acidic in nature. Okay. Then if you want to talk about another oxide, you know what is O3? What is O3? It's a ozone, isn't it? An allotrope of oxygen, ozone. You know about the depletion of ozone, etc. So ozone and the sulfur dioxide, these 2 are gases. Whereas selenium oxide is a liquid and tellurium is a solid. So these are the main thing about the oxides. Okay. So ozone gaseous state. And EO2 and EO3 are acidic in nature. So that's all, simple. Only 2 things to remember. It will form the oxides of the case EO2 and EO3. Then they both are acidic in nature. Then comes the ozone. Ozone and SO2 are gaseous in character. So that is about the oxides of 16th group element. Then now we will see the halides, which is little bit important. Okay. The halides is a little bit important. So now we will see what are the important this thing in halides. Okay. When you talk about halides, there are 3 main halides in this chalcogen family. It will form 3 main halides in this chalcogen family. If I talk about sulfur, we can have SF2, then SF, or in place of F I will write X. Okay, SX2, then SX4 and SX6. See? Or even if I can write E. E means what? E for the all these elements and X for the halogens. Okay, I can write 3 types of halogens are there. It forms 3 types of halogens like EX2, EX4 and EX6. Okay, here there is little bit you have to go in detail. So 3 types of halogens, and the first type you talk about with EX6. What is it? EX6. And the example you are taking is as SF6. Very important example. See, if you take SF6 as an example, you can say this has got a geometry of octahedral. It has got a geometry of octahedral in nature. And the most stable fluoride, hexafluorides are stable, but the most stable fluoride is SF6. It is exceptionally stable. Exceptionally stable. It's a board question. Why? This SF6 is exceptionally stable halide with fluorine. because the reason is due to the steric reason. Just write due to steric reason. You have studied this SF6, SF4, etc. in chemical bonding. There we have come across with the structure of this chemical bonding, how to write this lone pair, bond pair, etc. to make this molecule stable. So in there we have studied this is exceptionally stable due to steric reason, and it is having an octahedral geometry. Okay, among the halides, this fluoride, among the fluorides, the SF6 is most stable. Okay, so just remember these two. This SF6 is the octahedral in nature and it is exceptionally stable due to the steric reasons. Okay, now we will come to about SF4 or EX4. Now when you talk about EX4, listen, EX4, you know, you have SF4, okay, sulfur, SCF4 and TeF4. We can have three types of fluorides like sulfur, then selenium and tellurium. Okay, and this SF4 is a gas, whereas SCF4 is liquid and TeF4 is a solid. See? And this F4 geometry has got an sp3d geometry. This is got an sp3d geometry or hybridization. You know about it, right? It is having an sp3d hybridization. So it has got a geometry of trigonal bipyramidal. Trigonal bipyramidal. Okay, so this is about the geometry. Whereas in SF6 it has got an octahedral geometry, whereas it is in SF4 or SCF4 or TeF4, the geometry is trigonal bipyramidal. And it has got an hybridization of sp3d. Okay, now when you come to the SF6, SF6 is very important in geometry, which is called as seesaw geometry. Seesaw geometry, which means what? It is trigonal bipyramidal. If I draw the structure, listen, draw the structure, it will be like this. See, it will be like this: 1F, 2F, 3F and 4F, and here there is one lone pair. See, if you put like, if you see like in this angle, this is a seesaw. This is the base and this is the two seesaw sides. Okay, and here this is a equatorial, this thing, see, and the one lone pair of electron is in the one corner of an equatorial position. Thereby the molecule is very, very stable. So it has got a seesaw geometry in the case of SF4. Clear? What about SF6? Octahedral geometry. Okay, here it is trigonal bipyramidal. See, trigonal bipyramidal geometry. Okay, now coming to SF2, isn't it? So now coming to the SF2 or EX2. Okay, now coming to EX2. Now EX2 also, in the case of EX2, all these elements except the selenium forms this dibromides and dichlorides. That's all. It forms dibromides and dichlorides except selenium. Selenium is an exception. It does not form dichlorides as well as bromides and dichlorides. Rest all other like sulfur, then tellurium and oxygen forms what? Dibromide as well as dichloride. Okay. In fact, not so much of oxygen, about sulfur and tellurium. Okay. Now one more halogen compound is there for this family, that is monohalogen family. That means monohalides. The oxygen, not oxygen, sulfur, selenium and tellurium, they can have monohalides, which means one halogen is there. But the problem is, this exists as dimers. What do you mean dimers? For example, you can't write as SF2. You can write only as S2Cl2. That is, it forms, even though it is a monomer, it exists as a dimer. It is a monohalide. If you say sulfur chloride, but it cannot exist like this. It exists as dimers, or SeCl2, Se2Cl2 or Tu2Cl2. See, these are all dimers, but they are monohalides. But one thing is that this monohalides which gets dimerizes, isn't it? Dimerizes will undergo disproportionation reaction. You know disproportionation, isn't it? Self-oxidation reduction. So what happens? Se2Cl2, for example, it will decomposes or it undergoes disproportionation to form SeCl4 plus Se. See, if it is 2, 2 2s are 4, then 3. See, this is disproportionation reaction. So the monohalides dimerizes and that dimer undergo disproportionation reaction. And one more thing about this EX2 is the hybridization is sp3 and the geometry is tetrahedral. Got it? So these are the about the halides or halogen, the reaction with halogen. So what all you have studied? The reaction with hydrogen, hydrides, 3 points: stability, reducing agent and acidic property. Now then oxides, not much, but EO2 and EO3. Then ozone is also a gas. Then all the oxides, both the oxides EO2 and EO3 are acidic in nature. That's all. Now coming to the halogens, in fact 4 types of halogens. That is, when you take one example as SF6, it has got octahedral geometry and it is exceptionally stable. Among the hexahalides, the fluorides are exceptionally stable, and in that SF6 is exceptionally stable due to steric reason. Then coming to the SF4. SF4 it is having a trigonal bipyramidal geometry. It is a hybridization, is sp3d, and also it has a seesaw geometry. Correct. Then coming to the SF2, isn't it? SF2. In that it has got a sp3 hybridization, and you know sp3 hybridization means the shape is tetrahedral. Then coming to the monohalides, all the elements except selenium forms dibromide and dichloride. Correct. Then coming to the last one, monohalides. Monohalides does not exist, but it dimerizes to form this dimer. Isn't it? It dimerizes to form this dimer, and the dimers undergo disproportionation reaction. So that's all about this halides. Okay, so just go through it. Make a table. If you want, you can make a table with the hybridization and the structure. Okay, so that's all about this reactions, the chemical reactions of the 16th group elements or the chalcogens. Now we will move on to the specific element, that is our dioxygen, that is O2. Likewise, what we studied in nitrogen. What all we studied? Just the preparation, the physical and the chemical properties along with some uses. That's all. Okay, now we will see how oxygen is prepared. You know how we prepared nitrogen from the fractional distillation of air. You prepared nitrogen leaving behind oxygen, isn't it? So by that way also you can prepare oxygen. But the main preparation is by the thermal decomposition of any chlorides, salt or nitrates. See, KClO3 on thermal decomposition. Will give you KCl plus O2. Listen, see, 3 and 2. So this is the first method of preparation of getting oxygen. That is, any chlorate or nitrate on the thermal decomposition, that is heat, you will get oxygen. Okay. Now, the next preparation of oxygen is by the thermal decomposition of oxides of the metals having low standard electrode potential, which means, for example, Ag. So Ag2O3, listen, Ag2O3, that is noble elements. We are talking about noble elements having low reduction potential. On thermal decomposition, you will get Ag plus O2. So you can get oxygen by the thermal decomposition of metal oxides. Okay, or you can have higher oxides, oxidation state, for example, PB3O4. See, PB3O4, isn't it? It is PB3O4. On thermal decomposition, you will get PbO plus O2. This way also you can prepare oxygen. So first is by the thermal decomposition of potassium chloride or salt, chloride, nitrate, sulfate, etc. Second is the thermal decomposition of oxides, metal oxides, which is having low reduction potential or having a higher oxidation state also. Oxides of even low reduction potential or higher oxidation state. Both on thermal decomposition, you will get the corresponding oxygen. Got it? Now how will you get oxygen? You have studied by the electrolytic decomposition of water. Isn't it? You will get hydrogen and oxygen as the products. So from that, industrially speaking, you will get oxygen by the electrolysis of water. So these three methods are the preparations of oxygen. So third method is electrolysis, isn't it? Electrolysis of water. Electrolysis, industrially you are preparing oxygen by like this, industrial preparation. That is electrolysis of water, you will get hydrogen and oxygen. So these are the three methods of preparation of oxygen. Clear? Now we will move on to the physical property. What are the physical property? What are the physical property? Oxygen is a colorless, odorless gas. Yes. Then, what about the solubility of oxygen? It is slightly soluble, isn't it? Slightly soluble in water, which means that to the extent which the aquatic animals will have the dissolved oxygen. Only to that much extent it will dissolve. So that aquatic animals will get the dissolved oxygen. So only to that much extent it will soluble in water. Then oxygen, you know, almost every element react with oxygen to form the corresponding oxides. Exception is the noble metals like gold, silver, etc. Direct combination of this thing. Okay. So, but direct combination with oxygen, with the reaction with metals and non-metals, both metals and non-metals or even compounds react with oxygen, isn't it? So, metals, non-metals, everything react with the oxygen. And we know the reaction with oxygen is an exothermic process, isn't it? Exothermic process. But the problem is, in order to initiate the reaction, what do you mean by that? In order to start the reaction, we have to sometimes give the heat externally. A little bit of heat. Then it will go on combustion. Why? Because since the oxygen is double bond, compact double bond, it needs somewhat a slight external source for this oxidation, for the burning, then it will go on combustion. Yes, this due to the oxygen double bond. Understood? Now, coming to metals. If you have metal calcium plus oxygen, you will get what? Calcium oxide. Correct? Aluminium. You have to balance it, right? Whenever you write an equation, just balance it. Al plus O2, what you will get? Al2O3. So, metals. Then, what about non-metals? Non-metals, for example, P plus O2, that is P4. P4 plus O2, you can have P2O5 as well as P4O10. Depending on the oxygen you put that. For P2O5, you will have P2O5. So, it is 2. So, it is P4 and 5O2. See? 10O2. So, just balance it. So, you can have P, then coming to carbon, non-metal, C plus O2 giving CO2. Isn't it? Then again, compound ZnS plus O2 will give you ZnO plus SO2. Isn't it? Then again the reaction, last session you studied about Osterwald process for the manufacture of nitric acid. There you said the first step was the catalytic oxidation of ammonia. So again you can say the reaction, chemical reaction with oxygen. What was it? Ammonia plus oxygen, again oxygen. In the arrow, you should write platinized wire gas, isn't it? The pressure and the temperature. So, you will get nitric oxide. So, all these are the chemical properties. That means, in any reaction, the oxygen takes place very, very easily. Because it is always abundant in nature. So, that is the chemical property of oxygen. Okay. So, then I think that's all in the chemical property. Then the uses of oxygen. You know the uses of oxygen, right? You have to study 2 or 3 uses of oxygen. Okay. Then support of combustion or liquid oxygen, etc. Okay. So that's all about the oxygen. That is the chemical properties. Okay. Now we will see the oxides of oxygen. That is also very, very important. Oxides. That means that the oxides of nitrogen we didn't study much because they are deleted in this chapter, but oxides of oxygen is there in this chapter. It's very simple. See, oxides are mainly, oxides means what? The binary compound which any element combined with an oxygen. You call it as an oxide. For example, sulfur plus oxygen, sulfur oxide. Or carbon plus oxygen, carbon dioxide. So, any binary compound which combines with the oxygen, you call it as an oxide. Simple. Now, oxide can be of 2 types. One is simple oxides. Okay, simple oxides, and second is mixed oxides. Mixed oxides. Okay, now what about simple oxides? Simple oxides in the sense, for example, carbon dioxide, okay, Al2O3, all are simple oxides, ZNO, they are all simple oxides, correct. Now what about mixed oxides? Mixed oxides, for example, Fe3O4, see, Fe3O4 or Pb3O4. You know how Fe3O4 is obtained? Fe3O4 is obtained by nothing but FeO and Fe2O3. If you mix these two, that's why it is called as a mixed oxide. See, Fe2O3 and FeO, which will go as Fe3O4. That is Fe3O4. In the same way, PbO and Pb2O3, you will get Pb3O4. So, oxides are generally into 2 types. That is simple oxides as well as mixed oxides. Okay. Now we will see, now you know mixed oxides. Now we will see in detail about the simple oxides. Okay. What are the simple oxides you can see? You all know this. Simple oxides can be classified as, listen, simple oxides are classified as, one, acidic oxide, then acidic oxide, then amphoteric oxide, isn't it? Amphoteric oxide, then definitely basic oxide, and the other one is neutral oxide. So simple oxides can be classified again as acidic oxide. Acidic oxide means what? Acidic oxide means normally you have studied that non-metallic oxides, isn't it? Non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature. Or for example, non-metal means carbon. Carbon dioxide, when it is treated with water, you will get carbonic acid. Or sulfur, again a non-metal. Sulfur, oxides of sulfur means sulfur dioxide. On treatment with water, you will get sulfurous acid, H2SO3. So again it is an acid. So non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature. But here there is an exception case also. So that you have to remember. General trend you will know. But is there any exceptional case behind that? That you have to note down it. Okay. So here the exception is heavier metals having higher oxidation state. For example, V2O5, isn't it? And Mn2O7, higher oxidation state metals are acidic in nature. Why? Because, see, normally we say that metallic oxides, these are all metallic oxides. Metallic oxides are basic in nature. But acidic nature exceptions are B2O5, Mn2O7, etc. are acidic oxide, and CrO3. Again one more, CrO3. So these 3 oxides are exception which are acidic in nature. So just note down it. Okay, exceptional case. So this is about the acidic character. Now what about the basic character? That is, metallic oxides are basic in nature. So metallic oxides are basic in nature. For example, calcium oxide plus water, you will get a base, that is calcium hydroxide. Simple. Okay. Or sodium oxide or potassium oxide plus water will give sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, which is a base. Alkali, that is dissolving in water. So metallic oxides are basic in nature and non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature. Exception for the acidic of metallic oxides are V2O5, vanadium pentoxide, manganese oxide and the chromic oxide. So just note this point. Okay. Now coming to amphoteric oxides. What are amphoteric oxides? Some oxides like zinc oxide or aluminium oxide. The amphoteric means what? They react with both acid as well as bases. So such type of oxides which react with both acid and bases to form salt and water, what you are saying, is called as amphoteric oxides. So we will see what is amphoteric oxide. It's a reaction of amphoteric oxide. Okay. Now what is amphoteric oxide? For example, if you take the reaction as Al2O3. Okay. Now Al2O3, it states that amphoteric oxide means both acid as well as base. So if you take acid, what it will form? In the smaller classes you study AlCl3 plus water. But it is not the case. It will form a complex. See, it forms Al, okay, AlH2O, okay, AlH2O 6 times. See, AlH2O 6 times 3 plus and 6Cl minus. So this is a complex. We will study in the coordination compound what is complex. So this is a complex form, that is hexa aqua aluminum. Then the rest, what is the counter ion, that we will make it. Aluminium 3 chloride, something like that. So it's a complex formation of this when Al2O3 is reacted with hydrochloric acid. Now the same thing, the Al2O3 can also again react with a base. That is why it is called as amphoteric, isn't it? So this is acid and this is base. So this same oxide can react with both acid as well as base to form the complex. Now here also you will get Na3Al, isn't it? Na3AlOH plus. So see, this is sodium aluminate. This is sodium aluminate. So this is what is called as amphoteric acid. Sorry, amphoteric oxide. This is 6 amphoteric oxides. Got it? Clear? Now we will move on to, so what are the oxides which are there? Simple oxides and mixed oxides. Then simple oxides divided into acidic oxide, basic oxide, amphoteric oxide and neutral oxides. Now what about neutral oxides? Neutral oxides are neither acidic nor basic. For example, CO, carbon monoxide, NO and N2O. What is N2O? Nitrous oxide. Nitrous oxide. So these are the oxides, the various kinds of oxides in this group 16. So you got it? So simple oxides as well as mixed oxide. In simple oxide, acidic, that is non-metallic oxide, basic, metallic oxide, amphoteric with both acid and base, and then the neutral acids. Clear? Then you just study about the two uses of this. That's all. Oxygen. So these are the things we studied under this oxygen. Okay. So that's all. Next we will go on to the next session. So till then, keep studying. Thank you.